Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I want to recognize all the honorable ministers here present, parliamentarians, resource persons, panelists, as well as the PPD Secretariat and staff, all other protocols duly and respectfully observed. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First of all, before commencing, of course, I want to bring you greetings from my president, His Excellency Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yaya AJJ Jammeh, President of the Republic of the Gambia. In addition, the women and the girls of the Gambia, because that is the theme for our discussion today. And of course, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of His Excellency the President, on behalf of the entire delegation here present, to thank the Right Honourable Prime Minister of the Republic of Bangladesh, and of course the government, as well as the PPD Secretariat and staff, for the wonderful facilities that have been put at our disposal since our arrival in this beautiful city of Dhaka, and the wonderful hospitality as well. I'd also like to congratulate, at this point, the new Executive Director of Partners in Population and Development, I guess who only took over in the last 6 or 7 months. And of course, thank the outgone one as well for the wonderful job done. And by extension, thank the staff of the Secretariat as well. Of course, I want to thank the torchbearers of this wonderful organization and alliance and partnership for promoting and, of course, enhancing the South-South cooperation and influence and initiative through this very important organization that was formed after the Cairo 1994 Conference on Population and Development. I thank the PPD for this opportunity as well to deliver the keynote address for this segment of the Ministerial Conference on the theme Gender Equity, Equality, and the Empowerment of Women and Girls, I would say, by extension, because the girl is the future woman, for sustainable development. Of course, it's only, I guess, an honor given to me, but I can tell you that there is more expertise on that table among the panelists than my humble self. And I'm sure today you would be very proud of having women talking for women, but I would have wanted to see gender-sensitive men also on that panel. On behalf of my government and the people of the Gambia, I would like to thank the PPD, as I said, for creating this laudable forum that brings together continents of diversities, of course. We all come from different parts of the world. But what brings us together is our commonalities, and of course, learning from our differences and challenges as well. We are an alliance with common interests, and we are here to share lessons of best practice and experiences in the implementation, of course, of the ICPD Program of Action, that is the Cairo 1994 Program of Action on Population and Development. I'm very grateful once again to the government of Bangladesh, as I said earlier on, for hosting this important event and ministerial conference. Surely, Madam Chairperson, gender equality, equity, and the empowerment of women is at the heart of the Cairo ICPD Program of Action. From the beginning to the end, in the chapeau itself of the document, it's all about men, women, boys, and girls. Therefore, it's about gender. And that is why this particular forum is particularly important, since it would make us aware that gender and development is not about women and development only, but it's about the development of society as a whole. If one invests in women, we would all agree, in terms of development and meaningful socio-economic transformation, which we all want for everybody, Of course, we invest in half that society, sometimes more than half. It depends on the percentage of women in that society. But it's always been said, and it's been proven by development experts, by all concerned, that if you invest in women and girls, it trickles down to the rest of society. That if you develop women and girls, indeed, you develop the rest of society. Why? Because women are the first teachers in life. They are teachers of men as well as of women, of boys as well as of girls. They are the custodians of society. And therefore, they can influence any human being at an early age and mold you in either this way or the other. That is why it's critical to invest in women and develop women, because it trickles down to society. But if you develop just men and boys, we've always proven that even in education, then we are developing one sector of society. And that is why it's critical, because it's an efficient form and an effective form of development for any country. The issue at hand cannot be overemphasized, therefore. Gender equity, equality, and the empowerment of women and girls, once a taboo subject, of course, in some areas, in some countries of the world, is increasingly within reach now, thank God, in most parts of the globe, thanks to sensitization by gender experts, by activists, by governments, and indeed at the global level as well. This, among other things, gives women informed choices or options. That is the whole process of gender equity, equality, and the empowerment of women and girls, which would enable them to be independent thinkers and agents of change for the better. And these options have now become, of course, a precondition or sine qua non for sustained and sustainable development, meaningful socio-economic transformation, which is very critical for everybody in society. The new era heralded by women and girls, attaining higher literacy levels, for example, broad-based education, taking up leadership responsibilities, and making independent choices and decisions on their sexual as well as reproductive lives, is indeed an exciting time for women in all countries of the world. But would I say an exciting time for society and anybody who understands what that means. Governments are recognizing that they cannot continue to develop and prosper without fully engaging one half of their population. Achieving gender equality, therefore, and women's rights is regarded at par with other pressing global issues, including ending poverty, for example, and hunger. Because it's been said, also reducing infant and maternal mortality, and of course tackling climate change and imminent disasters, among other priorities. It's been said that a country is judged by the level of development it has achieved, which is mirrored on the status of its women and girls. So you see how critical that is. Therefore, it makes good socio-economic sense to invest in women and girls for reasons of equitable, as I said earlier on, and efficient socio-economic development for all, the whole of society. Despite women's competencies and ensuring their equal access to all levels as well as fields of education, this will widen the talents and perspectives that countries can draw on to meet these challenges and enable women to compete, particularly for non-traditional jobs, non-traditional areas of development as well, such as in the areas of science, technology, and innovation, on equal basis with men and boys. This is only good for any country, because for development to happen, it's people that make it happen. And development is all about people. And population and development is all about people as well. And it's all about development. People at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the development spectrum, because people make development happen. Therefore, it's critical to develop everybody, male or female, irrespective of gender. This is what our president has been doing through the scholarship scheme for girls, for example, in my country, such as what he calls the President's Empowerment of Girls Education Program, and the Gambia Foundation for Peace, and the Scholarship Fund for Girls, among others. The UN Secretary General's high-level panel on global sustainability concluded that any serious shift towards sustainable development surely requires gender equality, equity, and the empowerment of women and girls, and has been recognized as one of the fundamentals, indeed, of development. Every day, women take decisions that affect sustainable development, so why not involve them so that the right decisions are taken? Be it the use of water, fuel, wood, or energy. I'm not saying that all the decisions we take at the traditional level are not wise decisions. Indeed they are, because one good thing about women also is that they are the custodians of both culture, traditions, values, and they are the custodians of the environment as well. And that is why you should involve them in that decision making, as equal partners, of course, as well as beneficiaries of the development process. The attainment of gender equality, equity, and the empowerment of women and girls has long been recognized by many governments, including my own, as important prerequisites for meaningful socio-economic transformation, as I said earlier on, for all. We therefore support the Cairo 1994 ICPD Program of Action on Population and Development. That's why we are here. That's why we joined the partnership. That's why we attended the meeting in Cairo. So the outcomes, as well as the conclusions, we associate ourselves with very much, as well as of the Beijing Fourth Conference on Women. They are very similar. The objectives, in fact, Cairo made Beijing easier, because the agreed language we had in Cairo made it easier for us to adopt Beijing, even though both of them are tough. Anything about women is usually tough, and you really have to negotiate on behalf of women. It was difficult, but thank God we achieved it, both in Cairo and in Beijing. Particularly, the World Conference also talked about the 12 critical areas of concern. If you remember, it was Africa that brought in the 12th one. We had 11. And Africa decided that the girl child is a priority because of the future woman, so it was incorporated in the platform for action. And the 23rd special session, if you all remember, of the General Assembly as well, on women, is a very important meeting as well. In this respect, significant achievements have been made in closing the gender gap over the years and empowering, as a result, our women and girls. Of course, we have made some achievements, but we have a long way to go too. We may only be halfway. Some countries are ahead of others. We are not all in the same level. In the Gambia, about 65% to 70% of the agricultural labor force, according to statistics, is women, and more than 89.9% of these, of course, live in the rural areas. Women always stay. If there's anybody migrating most of the time, I'm not saying women don't, but it's mainly young men who migrate than women. The Back to the Land initiative, spearheaded by His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia, plays a very significant role in improving women's productivity and by increasing access to labor-saving devices, access to institutional support services, and, as I said, productive assets as well, among them agricultural inputs. Government continues to support resource-poor producers with special attention to crop production by women, horticultural, poultry, and livestock farmers as well. Through the Livestock Horticultural Development Program that we have in the Gambia, and livestock farmers have been assisted, because most of them are women, particularly those dealing with small ruminants and poultry, as well as crop production and horticulture. Those are women's crops most of the time, and are already benefiting from this very important support. The initiative is an integral part of Vision 2020, what we call Vision 2020 in the Gambia. It's a long-term development plan, but in order to reach that, we also have an interim plan, which we call the Program for Accelerated Growth and Employment, PAGE, 2012 to 2015, which is the same landmark year when we are going to review the MDGs. Therefore, it's an integral part of both development blueprints, aimed at reducing poverty by raising food security and incomes on a sustainable basis. In relation to the financing for gender equality, equity, and the empowerment of women and girls, government will, with support from development partners, of course, NGOs, the private sector, has over the years implemented activities culminating in the increase of women's access to education and training, productive resources, credit, among others. Significant increases as well have been made and registered in a number of women's programs. For example, we have an increase in women in decision-making positions, example in politics. Just to give an example, in cabinet, 43% of the current cabinet is women, composed of women. 13 of the National Assembly, we need to do a lot more there, is composed of women. And increasingly, women continue to occupy management positions in the civil as well as public services, and of course the private sector. Capacity building for potential women leaders to increase their participation in productive ventures continues to occupy center stage in all our endeavors towards women's empowerment. Gender-based violence is an issue of concern globally, not just in Africa, but very much so in the developed world as well. And therefore, we have come up with a gender-based violence and sexual offenses bills, two different bills, one on gender-based violence, another on sexual offenses. And they've been finalized for enactment by Parliament or the National Assembly. Capacity building in gender mainstreaming, planning, gender budgeting, of course, programming and management, monitoring and evaluation, including research, have been carried out. For example, for ministers at the level of cabinet, and indeed, members of the National Assembly, or our MPs, as we call them, members of parliament, heads of institutions, as well as the staff of the whole gender machinery, that is the gender focal points in government, as well as in the private sector, the NGO, and at the decentralized level, including the private sector and NGOs. All these are expected to later on ensure gender-responsive budgeting and planning at all levels. Rights-based approaches to the empowerment of women and girls have also been carried out accordingly by government and encapsulated in our development agenda. It is in this regard that a number of international instruments that we all know of, conventions, agreements, and protocols, were signed, adopted, and ratified by the Gambia, just like other African countries have, I presume. For example, the Gambia has already sent its first, second, third, fourth, fifth reports to the UN CEDAW committee in New York. And we have done the same at the level of the AU and indeed at all other levels. And we continue to provide, of course, legal aid and legal advice. And as I told earlier on, we are also implementing the AU protocol on human and people's rights on the rights of women in Africa, which is an African protocol. As well as women, particularly working women, are given 6 months leave. At first, reviews of the various MDGs, including the Cairo Program for Action and the Beijing one, the data surely will become even more crucial to measure the achievements and plans for future interventions and programs. Therefore, I would like to use this opportunity once again to indicate the demonstrable political will and commitment of our various governments, including the Gambia, in addressing population and development issues through this South-South cooperation that we are having under the PPD, which is a very good initiative indeed. And I wish to inform this august body that an appropriate institutional, legal, and administrative framework has been established to address population, gender, and women's empowerment issues. We have a population commission in the Gambia, I'm sure everybody else has one, a women's council and a women's federation, among others. These have all been established to address the critical gender needs and concerns of women and girls and the entire Gambian population. The same is true for our sub-regional groupings in Africa, such as ECOWAS, and of course, our continental body, the AU. Once again, thank you very much, and may God bless. A round of applause.